I'm here with Namal Rajapaksa. He's a member of parliament for the ruling Podujana Peramuna party of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He's also the nephew. He is the former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's son. And indeed, the entire family is in the eye of a storm in Sri Lanka right now. Namal Rajapaksa, thank you for talking to the Times Network. My very first question is, what happened on that fateful day last week?
I think it was unfortunate. As I say, provocation was from both sides, especially when the leader you have been loved, being criticized and accused falsely with different names. You know, it's natural for the party cadres, the people who loves him, to get provoked. I personally believe the incident that took place on that day shouldn't have taken place. But at the same time, what happened afterwards, you know, I believe it was very well planned by certain political parties. And it was not just happened because of the incident that took place in the morning, but it was very well planned and pre-planned mob attack for identified and selected residents or houses or individuals, I would say, especially representing Podujana Peramuna or SLPP and Alliance. So I personally believe it was a very well planned campaign or mob attack that was planned by certain political parties and individuals.
So which political parties are you referring to, Namal? I need to know. You say that certain individuals incited, people to attack back at Golface and that the politician was killed. So who are these people? Who are these politicians that you refer to?
See, if you see the traction on social media and the people who are upfront very vocal about it, and also the videos posted themselves being present at certain residents of Member of Parliament and local council members and supporters of SLPP, majority, I would say more than 95% of them are representing either JVP or SJB. And this is the SJB. This is not what I'm saying. This is from the facts and figures that is already on social media, and also if you look at the cases that have been filed against, most of them are representing these two political parties. And also on the 9th, on that day, the JVP leader was freely walking around at Golface site and provoking people to take revenge. And at the same time, SJB leader was attacked. And I must tell that also, because we will not encourage or endorse any sort of violence. And one of the SLPP members or member of parliament was brutally assassinated by the mob attack. Or I don't call them protesters, because peaceful protests are totally different. So I think we should separate these two. The protesters who are doing a protest with good intention, and people who are trying to take political advantage by using them or putting them front as shields. So these are two different people. So these mobs, people who led mob, assassinated brutally one of the member of parliament from SLPP as well.
Namal, but please explain to me, where was the need to hold that meeting that day? I mean, you know that there were crowds protesting, there were peaceful protests happening at Golface. So where was the hurry to hold that meeting of supporters of your father who had come from outside to visit him at Temple Trees?
See, if you look at in 2015, when President Rajapaksa was defeated from elections, you see a lot of people came into his house. And there are millions of people walked in just to talk to him and see how he's doing. So similarly in on Friday, when the news broke out that he resigned, there were many people coming even during the weekend. And the local council members want specifically to come and express their opinion. And it was not organized. Most of the people came voluntarily to hear him. And if you analyze the event, there was no provocation. And there was no intention of provoking our people. And there was no intention of any sort of violence. And in fact, if you look at President Rajapaksa's statement he made on that day, he specifically highlighted the political agenda of our government or his government, and also the future, how are we going to face it. But there was no statement or any sort of action taken by him or any other members to provoke the crowd to get into violence. And in fact, our residence has been always open for public, and people always come in and out. I mean, if you look at 2015, there were millions of people who just walked in. Similarly, once the news broke out, people start calling, people start coming in to see him, and local council members came in. Then the voluntary people took buses and started coming into Temple Trees. So it was not a rally or a meeting; it was just a greet and event that was spontaneously organized. I mean, it was not a pre-planned organized event. I mean, if you look at the crowd, there were about 25,000 people who came in. And if you analyze this mob attack or this attack that took place in these two unauthorized centers, I would say, because even these two protest sites were not legally, it's not legal. And it was not even 10% or 1% of the crowd that came into Temple Trees. If it was an organized attempt, then things would have been different. But this is nothing to do with. This is not an organized attack. I must reiterate that. It was an open invitation. It was an open event, as in people anyway coming to Temple Trees to see him. So the Prime Minister, as usual, came in, gave his political agenda, gave his speech, and he just walked out. And there is no provocation from our side.
But Namal, people are saying, there are videos circulating, as you said, there are a lot of rumors circulating. People are saying that orders were given, that they saw you, that they saw, various people giving these people orders to go and storm the golf face where there were peaceful protesters. So comment on that. Did you give any orders?
No, there was a video circulating. In fact, I just gave a statement to police about that video, where a background voice talking about golf face. But it was not visually heard, it was not physically heard at that time because of the noise, the crowd, but it was just a random video. I'm taking selfies with the people who came in. There's no provocation. I was smiling in that video. So how can you provoke someone by smiling?
So what did you say on that video? Because I don't understand Sinhala, but from what I hear, that you said something like go, incited the crowds to go. So please explain exactly what you said and what were you doing on that video?
In that video, if you carefully look at it, there is no words coming from my mouth. I didn't say a single word. I just took the selfies and I just walked out. But there were people screaming around. So you cannot say that someone in the vicinity screamed and say that that came out from my mouth, right? So I'm sure the police will analyze the video further, and I just gave a statement today in Parliament, and they wanted me to come and give a further statement once they're ready with the analysis, and I'm ready to face it. I mean, I can categorically deny that I made any such statement, but yes, I took selfies, and they were screaming, they were talking, they were very loud, there was a lot of music going around, and there were a protest happening other side from the other protesters, and there were Pirit chanting that was very loud, and there was music going on from this side. So so it is clear that I didn't hear any sort of provocation at that time, but I can guarantee and assure that nothing came from my side.
Namal, I'm going to begin to, confront you with all these stories that are swirling around your family. One of the stories is that your younger brother Yoshita has fled to Australia. Can you comment on that, please?
No, he didn't go to Australia. He went on a personal visit to a different place. But it has nothing to do with this particular event or what is happening in the country. It's a routine trip that he makes sure that he goes. And this similar thing happened to my wife and my son as well, because they are into tourism, so they travel a lot for work. In fact, even now they are out traveling for work, and they are on and off. But politically people try to portray that as they fled the country. No, we have nothing to hide. We will not go away from the public. We will face the allegations in court of law, because we always believe in people. We always believe in people, and we always believe in the Sri Lankan justice system. And if there is anything at all, we are willing to face any hearing.
So it's not just Yoshita. There is also a rumor that there was a helicopter that landed on the lawns in Temple Trees and whisked away your father. It also said that the rumor also goes that your wife and your child were also on board that plane. Where is your father? Please clarify, why was he whisked away?
There was no helicopters coming and taking them. They traveled by a car up to a certain extent. And my wife wasn't there. And it was all rumors, they just make stories just to...
What is this film circulating of a helicopter landing in Temple Trees?
You have to find out the person who recorded it and ask where did he record it. And Because there are a lot of rumors like that, a lot of stories, a lot of videos going around, a lot of old videos. Like there were some videos that I used to do water sports, and they used to take that and say this is he's doing during the crisis, you know. Likewise, you know, in politics in our part of the world, a lot of fake videos are circulating around. But of course, my father was taken for security reasons, and he's back, and you know, things like that happen. But at the end of the day, we have nothing to do in this case, you know, unless it's purely classified from the security point of view.
So you are saying that Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Prime Minister who resigned, is very much going to be back in Colombo, or he is back in Colombo, and he is going to be attending Parliament. Correct me if I'm wrong, but will we be seeing him in Parliament again?
Yes, of course, he will be attending Parliament, and he'll be very active in his political work and SLPP.
Now, Namal, you know, there is a feeling and a perception that there were so many Rajapaksas in the government, and that there is now, ever since the Prime Minister laid down his office, that there is bad blood between the brothers. Can you describe the relationship between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister who resigned, your father, Member of Parliament, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa? Is there bad blood because he was in a way asked to resign by Mr. Gotabaya?
So I think as brothers, they have no issue. But I think as politicians, there's a conflict of interest in policy. My father has always stood by the masses, and he always believed in the farming and fishing community being strengthened and the local industries. So I think when the fertilizer decision were taken, you know, that where my father opposed openly for that decision. And mismanagement of economy, it's something that came many years ago. And you cannot just project it on Sri Rajapaksa himself and say he mismanaged it. And if you look at when he was talking about buying dollars from the black market, Honorable Wickramasinghe phrased it in a different way, and he said the same thing. He said, I'm buying dollars from outside. So it's just a matter of words that they use. But see, getting back to the family, all of us were elected. And in fact, 69 lakhs of votes were given to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa because of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. And they knew when Gotabaya wins, Mahinda Rajapaksa is going to be the Prime Minister. It was open. We didn't hide it. We openly kept that as an election promise for the party. You know, the reason why our party helped President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was to make Mahinda Rajapaksa the Prime Minister. And when we went to Parliament election, our manifesto was laid down as Mahinda as a PM. So there's nothing to hide. Every person who voted for us knew that Mahinda Rajapaksa is going to be the Prime Minister. Then preferential votes. You know, I took the second highest number of percentage in Sri Lanka after my father. And of course, Honorable Sri Rajapaksa came from the national list. Other than that, all of us were elected by the people. But when we were told, you know, we had to take one step back, we all resigned because we all believe, you know, we had to do what's best for the party and for the country.
I mean, in other words, was Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa made a sort of a sacrificial, you know, was he sacrificed in order to save President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's own office? That is the key question that many people are asking.
Well, see, in politics, you need to do sacrifices, right? And at the end of the day, it's about the country at the end of the day. I mean, we need to have political stability. And if you look at now, President is stable because of the Constitution. Parliament can change any time. So, are we going to take a risk as a nation to destabilize the country by just taking the president out unconstitutionally? Or as a party, as individuals, as senior politicians, whether the President Rajapaksa is going to take a decision himself? So, I personally believe President Mahinda Rajapaksa took the right decision because to face this political crisis. Because, see, the political crisis was not the issue here. The economic crisis was the issue. Political crisis was created by the politicians themselves after the April attacks on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's residence. Because till then, there was no political crisis. Our government had more than 150 votes in Parliament. We had the majority, and we had a clear plan to work with IMF and other agencies, to work with India. And India has already approved the credit line by then. You know, credit line was not approved recently. And we were negotiating with China. So things were happening. But then with the political crisis that took over after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's residence mob attack, we had to take one step back. I mean, see, these are politicians that we need to do.
Now, one thing you will admit, Namal, you know, in 2009, when the civil war against the LTTE ended, your father was like a demigod. He was, his stature was huge, and you know, people really believed that he had ended this long civil war. From that to the position he is in today, you know, where people are just, you know, there is so much hatred that is being spread for the Rajapaksas, and there are so many people saying that your family looted the country. So, is that? How, can you explain this trajectory of this massive fall that your father has experienced?
No, I think it's politics, and especially in politics, you have opponents. I mean, no matter how good you are, and they carry out campaigns. And if you are good at it, you know, they can make a hero to zero overnight. I think that's what has happened. I mean, President Rajapaksa, my father, ended a 30-year-old war, and his time was the most development, like from development point of view, highest growth rate in the country for Sri Lankan history. The per capita income doubled after independence during his time, and unemployment rate dropped to single digit, and we were able to build airports, ports, connectivity, increase on our foreign revenue, increase exports, get multi-million-dollar companies to come and invest in Sri Lanka. You know, it was at its best, but unfortunately in 2015, with all that, he still lost elections. So that is democracy. But at the same time, the fake allegations that was created by that time, you know, about this $18 billion account, and one of the members of parliament at that time, minister from previous government, said that he personally saw that myself and my brothers carrying $18 billion and putting into a lorry. You know, that's how they projected, and they were talking about Lamborghinis, horses, and apparently they were golden horses. And the previous president, at one of his rallies, stated that there's a Buckingham Palace in US belongs to Rajapaksas. So this is politics. But unfortunately, a certain sector of the society believes it. You know, like, for example, a few weeks ago about this Uganda issue. And people believed that actually Rajapaksas took over $30 billion in aircraft to Uganda. But it is fake. It's not the truth. So this is how it is, you know, you do very well, people loves you, but at the same time, when things go wrong and the opposition get activated, they show a different portrait, different picture of you. Certain sector of society believes it. I mean, that is tough luck, you know, we politicians have to take it.
There's something else that people are commenting on. They say that the new Prime Minister, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, I mean, they're even calling him Ranil Rajapaksa, you know, in a very derogatory way, almost. They're saying that, you know, he is a BFF, a best friend, you know, of the Rajapaksa family, and he has only been put into place to save all of you, to save the Rajapaksa family, and to ensure your security. Could you comment on that, please?
No, I mean, Mr. Wickremesinghe has been there in politics for a very long time, and so do my father. My father has been in politics for 55 years, and he has been president twice, 5-time prime minister. And Mr. Wickremesinghe also became the youngest member of parliament, I believe, at that time. And he has become the 6th-time prime minister now in this country. So they have a political history, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you form a government or individual to protect each other. You form a government to protect your country and your people. But unfortunately, the opponents have always tried to put President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa in the same basket. But I must say, if I admit that my uncle and my father has two different political views or policies, Mr. Wickremesinghe and my father has a huge gap of when it comes to political policies. Different, massive gap. So their policies are totally different. So I'm sure both of them believe in politics, because they represent that generation. You know, they represent that generation where they believed in certain policies, and whether it's right or wrong, they always believed in that. So there is no way that they can coexist in political coalition. But I think, as for the sake of the country, we have to take certain decisions. But politics always be like that. You know, we'll be blaming each other. If Sajid Premadasa took over as a prime minister, they would have blamed him the same thing. They would have said Sajid came in to protect Rajapaksas. If Honorable Sirisena came in as a prime minister, or Honorable Dinesh Gunawardene became the prime minister, they would have still blamed him.
Yes, but there is squabbling in Parliament. People are squabbling over, you know, a no confidence motion, and whether that's a motion of distrust, or, you know, there's so much terminology being flung around. While on the streets, we've been out in Colombo, there are people who are waiting in line for 5 days, for hours and hours. There's no petrol, there's no gas. When is this going to end? And surely, I mean, you know, the need of the hour, as your father and as many others suggested, is a unity government where people come together and solve the problems of the people first.
See, unity government, will it work? Because all political parties have different policies. Can these policies come together in a democracy? Right? And see what has happened now. People ask for democracy, people ask for a change. Man with 151 seats in parliament is outcast, and person with 1 seat in parliament became the prime minister. So this is democracy that we are fighting for. Democracy is listening to the majority, right? And I think now what we have to do is all parties have to get together in agreed policies. I mean, if you can't form all party government anywhere in the world. I don't think it is practical at this stage, because all of us are voted for different reasons.
But the suggestion came from your father.
Yeah, because see, I think it's not from my father. It actually came from Mahanayakas and also certain sectors of the SLPP who broke away from us, SLFP. And then the Bar Association came with the same idea. But I think it's not practical. But if we all agree on certain policy framework, we can form independent government where we keep our parties aside and let our members to be independent and become part of the government. And we agree on certain time period that we will not sabotage or do anything to harm this agreed program. That's what SLPP has done now. So we have been in the government, but we have allowed our members independently to take any portfolio from Mr. Wickramasinghe and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and form the government. We will give our fullest support for a agreed period of time, maybe a year or two, it doesn't matter. And then we can see how are we going to do our politics, you know, how are we going to take forward with our political decisions. But I think if we ask all the parties to come together and form a government, trust me, it won't happen, because we all have different policies. I mean, TNA has different policies, JVP has different policies, SAJB, SJB, UMP, SLPP, SLFP. There are many other small parties who, in the parliament. So it's not going to work.
What about your father, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa? Now, there are many people saying that he looks unwell, that this is pretty much the end of his political future, and yet you say that he is back in Colombo, and he's going to be in Parliament very soon. Is this the end of Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's political future? Has he been keeping so unwell, as people say, that he is unlikely to re-enter active politics again?
I don't think. I mean, see, people have to decide that during election, because mob attacks cannot decide someone's political career. That's not democracy. It can decide your life. It can take your life away, like what happened in Middle East in certain countries. But it cannot take your political legacy. The legacy has to be decided by the people of the country. So I'm sure when there is election, if my father decides to contest, people can decide where his legacy is going to take further or not. But mobs, violence, riots cannot decide someone's political or personal life's careers.
Yet others are saying that if at all there is someone, it is Namal Rajapaksa who is the political future of this family. Do you see yourself as that political future?
See, I personally always believed that dynastical politics is not going to work in our part of the world anymore. We have seen that in our region. And politics is very strange. You know, people change overnight. Likes and dislikes, their needs. I mean, who anticipated 8 months or 2 years or 3 years ago about COVID-19 pandemic? And now we are heading towards one of the worst recessions in the world, in global history, with a war in Ukraine and Russia. So politics is very strange. I mean, see, it all depends on how you address the needs of the people at then and there, at the given time. So my political future will all depend on people of my constituency and people of Sri Lanka.